There's an infestation of anti-woke film critics on YouTube. For example, you got this dude named the Critical Drinker who makes videos like, "Why modern movies suck, the strong female character." Then you got this other dude called Nerdrotic who makes videos like, "The Marvel's failure is a massive culture war win." And there's a bunch of other channels just like that. That's pretty much the meta when it comes to film criticism these days. Just act like a woman getting cast as a superhero is leading to the downfall of cinema and the decay of Western civilization. And yeah, these types of channels are pretty low-hanging fruit, very easy to make fun of. But when you look at the numbers they're putting up, they are insanely popular. They get way more views than just about any legitimate or reputable film critic out there. So what's the deal with that? Why is this type of content so popular? I could definitely rant about how this type of content is so silly and so lame, which it is, but I'm more interested to look into why is it so effective? Why is it that this type of content is apparently so much more popular than actual legitimate film criticism? Do these people actually have a point? Are movies too woke now? Is it legitimate film criticism, or is it just political propaganda disguised as a movie review? A normal movie review would most likely appeal to people who are really into movies. I mean, let's be honest, your average casual movie fan is probably not going to be that interested in watching a film critic break down the cinematography in a French art house movie. What if instead of doing that, you pick a really popular blockbuster movie and you don't talk about all the nerdy filmmaking stuff like the cinematography, the editing? No, that's kind of boring. Most people don't want to listen to that. Instead, you cover the movie purely through a right-wing culture war lens. That might actually get some people interested. Who do you think is a more lucrative target audience to go after? Do you want to go after the hardcore movie fans out there? Or do you want to go after right-wingers who just happen to have a passing interest in Marvel and Star Wars? To be honest, I think that right there pretty much explains about 80% of why anti-woke film critics are way more popular than legitimate film critics, is because they just appeal to a much wider target audience. And by the way, what do I even mean by saying legitimate film critics versus anti-woke film critics? Are you saying that these aren't legitimate film critics? Because if you look at these anti-woke film critics, on the surface, yeah, they technically are doing movie reviews. Everything about their content follows the same general formula that you're going to get from about any movie review. But I think the big difference is when you look at these anti-woke film critics, one, their actual film criticism itself is very shallow, but I would also argue that film criticism is not even the main intention of their content. What they're doing is that they're using the trendiness of these big blockbuster IPs and the superficial formula of a movie review as a vehicle for their political commentary. And there's a reason why packaging political commentary into a movie review is so effective. Anytime one of these big blockbuster movies gets released, there is a massive marketing campaign behind that movie that is designed to turn it into a trending topic. So what these anti-woke film critics are doing is they're sort of hijacking these hundreds of millions of dollar marketing campaigns and they're inserting their political commentary into a trendy entertainment topic. It's a very easy way to get attention. Like, what do you think is going to get more views? If you just made a video called "Strong Women Are Bad," or if you made a video called "The latest Marvel movie is bad because it has strong women." You see what I'm saying? It's basically just a Trojan horse, and even if a lot of them are not intentionally doing that strategy, that is effectively what they are doing. And another thing to consider is that this type of content is way more palatable and digestible than straightforward political commentary like that you would get on Fox News or something like that. Because they're just talking about movies, man. It's not that deep, bro. And this is not unique to film criticism either. You see this a lot in other mediums. For example, in video games, there's people who have made entire careers complaining about the latest RPG having pronouns in the character creator, or if a game has a woman as a protagonist, people complaining that apparently she's not attractive enough for the gamers. You could probably find people using this Trojan horse strategy in just about any genre of content you can think of. So I'll give you a specific example of this that might be the most ridiculous and goofy version of this I've ever seen. So there's this video called "Gladiator 2 Turned Its Back on Masculinity." And if you don't care about Gladiator 2, don't worry, because this isn't really about Gladiator. It's really just, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So this guy's thesis is that the movie Gladiator 2 turned its back on masculinity because the first 5 minutes of the movie had a girl boss character who happened to be a really good warrior. Like, she got 5 minutes of screen time. So like this epic movie about gladiators that barely gives any screen time to any of the women characters It abandoned masculinity because of something that happened in the first 5 minutes that if you actually watch the movie, you would have no clue what this guy's talking about. You wouldn't even think about it. It's barely even noticeable. And obviously, I don't know this guy who made the video. I'm just spitballing. But if I had to guess, I would assume that he probably wrote the script for this video and came up with the title and thumbnail and all that before he even watched the movie. I just find it hard to believe that anyone who would actually watch the movie Gladiator 2 would come out of the movie thinking, wow, they really abandoned masculinity. Like, I feel like it's just obvious this dude already walked into the theater with the narrative ready to go in his mind. But it doesn't even matter because that video is not really about Gladiator 2. The Gladiator 2 movie review aspect of it, again, it's just the Trojan horse. The real point of the video is just an excuse to talk about masculinity and feminism. Like, you know what I'm saying? And to be fair, it did pay off for the guy. He got a lot of views for it. So, I mean, I guess at least he got the bag. And you see this sort of thing popping up all the time. For example, James Gunn's Superman movie. There's this outrage about, well, the movie is commenting on immigration and xenophobia, and I just wanted a Superman movie. Yeah, as if every piece of fiction doesn't have some subtext to it. But even setting that aside, we're talking about James Gunn's Superman movie. It's one of the most inoffensive movies you can think of. It just shows how much people are willing to reach when it comes to this kind of thing. At this point, you might be thinking that I'm just being really biased. I'm only pointing my fingers at one side, but I'm not looking at what the left is doing. If that's your interpretation of what I'm saying, then I have one question for you. Where is the left-wing version of this? Where is the leftist propaganda that's being disguised as a movie review? Where is it? I don't see it anywhere. There's this whole cottage industry of people turning right-wing propaganda into trendy movie reviews. I don't really think there seems to be a left-wing equivalent to that. And I'm sure if you ask some of these anti-woke critics about this, they say, well, mainstream media, legacy media, they're all woke, they're all biased. And I mean, yeah, most people who work for like the New York Times or the LA Times or whatever, yeah, they probably are left-leaning, they probably are biased, but there is a huge difference between someone who is a film critic who just also happens to be left-leaning versus someone who is blatantly making political propaganda and just packaging it into a movie review. It's not the same thing. If you have someone who has a left-wing bias, but they're just talking about dolly zooms and split diopter shots, how is that really comparable to someone whose entire lens through viewing movies is just talking about whether the movie is woke or it has a girl bot? They're not the same. And yeah, sure, a lot of critics would definitely point out if a movie has something that's problematic or something like that, but that never seems to be the main identity of that reviewer. Like, they're just film critics who sometimes maybe will throw in like a criticism that is related to their worldview, but that's not the main purpose of their criticism. And I'm not saying that film critics shouldn't have their own worldview or their own perspective. Everyone has their own biases. It's fine if a film critic has that. But the point of reviewing a movie is to review the movie as a movie. It's not supposed to be a vehicle for political commentary. And if there were a bunch of left-wing political commentators who were packaging propaganda into movie reviews, I'd be calling them out too. I'd be criticizing them. But I legitimately cannot think of a single popular example of someone who does that. I'm sure they do exist on some obscure corners of the internet, on maybe Letterboxd or Substack or something, but I'm not aware of any of these examples, at least on a popular level. So I'm genuinely curious. If you know any examples of this, let me know. Anyway, what are the consequences of all of this? It might seem relatively harmless to have all these culture war commentators pretending to be film critics. I mean, yeah, it's silly, it's goofy, you can make fun of it, but does it really matter that much at the end of the day? Everything is already so polarized anyway, and the existence of this type of content is really just a reflection of supply and demand, right? People want it, so the videos get made. But without being too dramatic, I actually think that this type of political propaganda is incredibly insidious. It is a lot harder to radicalize or indoctrinate people if you're just directly hitting them with the most extreme talking points. Most normal people would instantly identify that stuff as being super weird. You gotta have to save that for people who are already pretty deep down the pipeline. But when you package this kind of stuff into something digestible like a movie review, all of a sudden it starts becoming a lot more persuasive to the average person. Instead of coming out the gate with the extreme stuff, the heavy stuff, you're kind of easing them into it a little bit. You're just talking about movies, man. It's not that deep. I'm just saying it's not that hard to package extreme ideas into something simple like a movie review, and you don't have to go full mask off.